Anyway, about 3 weeks ago, I was at the premiere of a new short Irish film called Dreamers and Weepers, directed by Derek Wheeler from a company called Hethwheel. And we're very lucky at the moment to have pretty much the entire cast and pretty much everybody involved with the film except the children, I think, are here. So maybe you'd all like to introduce yourselves and say what your multiple roles in making the film was. Starting with you, Derek.
Okay, well, good evening, Garvin. How are you? My name is Derek Wheeler. I directed the film, and I was also cinematographer on the film, so I was responsible for how the film looked.
And you also kind of came up with the original basic idea of the film, I think, didn't you?
Yeah, there was one particular theme in the film which I wanted to tackle on screen. And what I did was I spoke to Pat Halligan, who had done a film with us before in 2007. And I gave him the idea that I had, and I said, can you come up with something that we can sort of, build around that and flesh it out into a half-hour film. And Pat came back a few days later with the first treatment of the script. After that, it went through a few treatments.
So that's what that brings it to you, Pat. You're the writer, obviously, and
I also act in it, Garvin. Good evening to you. How are you?
Not too bad. Welcome to Phoenix Film.
Glad to be here.
To all of you.
I'm Niall. I was the...
You're the Heth from Hethwheel, aren't you?
I'm the Heth from Hethwheel, that's indeed, yeah. My principal roles on it were all of the sound work, be it the location sound and then post-production as well as the soundtrack for the film.
Right, and that was actually quite impressive, I must say.
Thank you very much.
As a musician myself, I was quite, I thought, not only just what you did yourself, but your choice of music, of unoriginal music.
Yeah, well, it was all...
I think Pat gets the credit for the choice of unoriginal music. It was Pat that actually recommended the tune Claire de Lune.
There was a lot of pulling of nails and gnashing of teeth.
Pat's lobbying.
Pat lobbied hard for that.
And finally, Orna?
Yes, well, I hadn't known the boys before I did this film with them, so I'm an actress. I came for audition and was lucky enough to get the part of Vicky.
I have to say, having talked to you after the film, you're a very good actress because you're nothing like the character in the film.
Thank goodness.
Do you want to give a kind of brief overview of what the film is about? It's about 25 minutes long. It's filmed in black and white.
Yeah, it's
usually filmed in black and white in actual fact.
Thanks very much. It's 25 minutes long. We shot it on location in Kildare Town. We did some work in Grafton Street in Dublin, and then the remainder of the film, the sequences near the end of the film, were shot in a forest in County Laois. It's set in the present day. It's basically about a family who have become victims of the recession.
It's actually really set in the future that became the present day, really, isn't it?
Well, some would say it is, but it's basically a family who start to suffer from financial problems as a result of the recession, and then one member of this marriage, like Vicky, starts to question. She starts to question the value of her marriage to Joe in the film, and as a result of that, she decides that she can't take the financial hardship anymore and that she's going to leave him. Now, Joe is already down his luck because he's unemployed. He feels he can't provide for his family, so to be told that his wife is seeing somebody else and that she's going to leave, hits him hard. And then the double blow is that she says she's going to leave and take the kids, the two children, the two daughters that they have in the film. She's going to leave and take them to live with the other person that she's met. So basically what happens is Joe snaps, and what he does is he actually gets involved himself and his children in what's called a murder-suicide event, as in he gasses the children in the car, and then he gasses himself in the car. So that's basically how the film ends.
Well, that struck me... if this was a real-life event, what struck me is that we would probably have had the tabloids talking about, monster kills children, and yet in the film, by the time you've watched it, it's almost like a mercy. You actually understand the motives. You may not agree with what he did, but you understand the motives and you understand why he did it.
Well, we couldn't. In fairness, we couldn't actually go into an awful lot of backstory because we only had 12 minutes, or 25 minutes. But Pat, who wrote the screenplay, he'd have a definite view
Well, I think that's what we try to do. We try to push the audience point of view, because obviously to kill your children is just not socially acceptable in any circumstances. But I wanted to try and tease what was behind people's viewpoint when somebody was pushed to the edge and chose this path. I didn't want them to just do it out of alcohol abuse or whatever. I wanted them to be pushed emotionally. And I suppose the main threads running through the film are about marital breakdown, infidelity. There's alcohol abuse. There's self-esteem issues with people who are unemployed. And I think that runs through the whole film. And at the end of it, there's this situation that happens that, that people look at it and go, I couldn't see how we could do something like that. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to push the character to that point, I think.
Well, I actually felt that I could see how he could do something like that.
Well, there's something we always wanted to run home about the film, is that we weren't by any means being in any way gratuitous with this. We weren't trying to sell ourselves with this film, because obviously people remember it because of its content, but it's there in the papers every single day. And we have the set film at Christmas as well for that specific reason, is that especially at Christmas, you'll wake up Christmas Day, whatever, read the papers, it's all there.
Yep.
It's just putting it in film. That's the only difference.
And again, while you're on there, I think it's a good... I was trying to imagine what that film would have sounded like without the music. And I think, it would not nearly have had the same effect. Having said that, you don't kind of sit there saying, wow, this is great music. It's only afterwards, when you actually think back on it, that you realise how important the music actually was. Yeah,
well, it was important for me that, the music was all accompaniment. There was no set-piece scenes. Bar the Claire de Lune piece is obviously free of dialogue. But as well as that, there is... the soundtrack to the film was kind of created in sync with the movie as well, because it was a back and forth process. The title of the film itself even came from the title of the song.
Well, I think that's actually an interesting story, because when the script, when Pat had delivered the final version of the script, excuse me, we were looking for a name. Now it had a working title, but you need a fairly a decent name for a project like this when you put it into the public domain. And when talking about the music, Niall had composed the song, I think it was a couple of years back. A couple of years back, and it was called Dreamers and Weepers.
Right.
And he played it for me, and I said, "Listen, can I have a listen to it?" Because there was vocals on the original track, and I said, "Can I have a listen to it without the vocals?" And it just immediately clicked with me, because I, as the director and cinematographer in the film, I could visualise what the script was going to look like, and what the scenes were going to look like in black and white, and I just liked the piece of music. So then, eventually, I think the original track was reworked to what we have in the...
Yeah, it was... Well, what you hear is essentially the song as it was, minus the lyrics, or minus the vocals, and instrument-wise it's changed, obviously. When you're composing music for yourself and composing music for a film, it's a totally different process, but it is essentially.
It's almost like a kind of an oral... I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but it's sound, in some ways, almost even more than music, isn't it? That's a pretty good summary, to be honest, because it is, as I said before, it's all about accompaniment. Yeah. Instead of it being a 3-minute music video in the middle of the film, this is all just part and parcel of...
It has to suit. It has to suit what you're seeing on the screen. Yeah.
It's interesting, actually, that the title "Dreamers and Weepers." There's a line that Arnie uses in it when she says, "Joe, you're dreaming."
Yeah.
And when you see Joe's character, he spends a lot of time emotionally weeping, crying. So "Dreamers, Weepers" it suits it perfectly.
It was an accident, but it was a good accident. Fortunate.
So Chris Hitchcock is obviously here with us, our regular...
Listening intently here, and I can see by the team and what they're saying and what they've done, that they're passionate about their work, and obviously have a great interest in film. Is this your first collaboration?
It is for me with Derek. It is for me with everybody. Interesting you should say that. A lot of these relationships, from my experience in acting, don't actually work. Egos tend to get in the way of them. But with this group we have here, we worked extremely well together. And it's just down to the type of people and how we connected with each other. So it's a first for me anyway with Derek.